Remember Black Ops 3? From the fun advanced movement-based multiplayer and the large-scale zombie maps to the futuristic mind-bending campaign, it's been almost 10 years since the game released. And today I felt like the time was right to give some appreciation to a mostly overlooked aspect of the game, the amount of detail that went into the DLC multiplayer maps. Because the thing is, players aren't playing those multiplayer maps anymore. They are now a long forgotten relic of the past, completely isolated, stored away in a playlist queue that realistically never gets picked. The few players who are still actively playing BO3 in 2025 are, most of the time, simply playing their launch maps. Back then, Call of Duty was still using its old DLC content system. You could buy a season pass to get access to all 16 maps released during the game's life cycle, or alternatively buy map packs individually, if let's say you only wanted a specific collection of maps. Each pack included 4 multiplayer maps and 1 big zombies experience. For your typical zombie players, it was a no-brainer to buy the newest map pack, since those maps were massive and packed with content. Multiplayer players were more critical with their purchases. Especially after the game passed its prime, newer players rarely bought the new DLC map packs, since the majority of the player base only had access to the regular maps. And even if someone had the map packs, it became harder and harder to find a full lobby of players who had the same maps as them. Every player in the lobby had to have the maps purchased and installed for the game to even give the option to play them. If only one person didn't have the maps, then it simply wasn't an option. Over time, the player base shrank, and now in 2025, it's impossible to start a match on those DLC maps unless you're playing with a group of friends in custom matches. It's really sad, but I guess it's part of life. Old stuff gets forgotten to make room for new things. Modern COD has actually gotten rid of this old system. And while some argue that the newest maps lack the same quality as the purchasable ones from back then, it's still worth it for the sake of preserving maps for the future. At least that's how I like to look at it. Regardless, today I want to go back in time and look at some phenomenal and creative maps that were released with Black Ops 3 in 2016. And if you want more content like this, consider leaving a like and a follow, but let's get started. On the 2nd of February in 2016, the first DLC pack dropped. It was called Awakening, and alongside the Eisendrache, the beloved zombies map, it included 4 multiplayer maps. The first one I want to mention is Splash, the amazing water park map. Located somewhere on the coast of California, this map was a fan favorite and looked visually stunning. The main attraction was a big pirate ship in the center of it. You could jump into it and take power positions for sniping if you wanted to. And across the ship there were other attractions, like a smuggler's cave with a red X on the floor, marking a potential treasure, although the only reward was probably getting sniped if you stood there for too long. There was also a beach bar on the coast side along with a big pool. Unfortunately, the pool was out of bounds and my attempts to go towards the ocean were unsuccessful when capturing this gameplay. However, when looking at the map from above, you could still see the attractions as well as some ships in the ocean, which was pretty nice to look at. The park expands beyond the playable area. For example, there's a Mayan temple-inspired attraction next to the pirate ship, and a large resort or hotel in the north. On the opposite side, going out of bounds reveals a souvenir shop and a huge parking lot. Near the entrance you can also see the ticket prices, and in the locker building you will find a sign with the pool rules. Of course, since it was a water park, the map had some slides, though sadly you couldn't use them during normal gameplay. However, with no clipping, I went up the slide tower to look at the 3 major slides. While the entrances were closed with textures, I could still no-clip through them. So here's me going down one of the slides. If you were ever curious what could have been, there you go. Like I said, I couldn't get into the big pool area on the west side of the map, so I couldn't slide down the green water slide. Still, the map looked amazing. It had tons of details and this bright, fun vacation vibe. Unfortunately, it was still the battlefield for futuristic Black Ops operators and a whole lot of chaos. Next we have Skyjacket, a remake of the classic Hijacked map from Black Ops 2, but instead of a yacht, this one took place on a flying police airship, high in the sky with a stunning city skyline in the background. Visually it looked absolutely amazing. Instead of jet skis, there were futuristic space drone vehicles parked at the back. Looking at the language used for police on the ship, this likely took place somewhere in Germany. If you look closer, you will see that a fight probably happened here before we arrived. Bullet holes are everywhere and one room even has some bloodstains on a table, and there's a massive hole along the side of the ship, clearly caused by an explosion. It really makes you wonder what exactly happened here. If you were skilled enough to wall run into this segment of the map, you could spot some drones in the lower part of the ship, and of course there were other ways in this room too, with entrances on either side. Across the bridge there was a room filled with robots, which, putting 2 and 2 together, must have been police bots. A really cool location overall and definitely a worthy remake of a fan favorite map. Next we have Gauntlet, located in the middle of a desert military base. I think your guess is as good as mine, but it might be somewhere in Nevada. The gimmick with Gauntlet was that its 3 lanes were inspired by a different terrain. On one side we had a jungle area, in the middle section there was snow and ice, and at the other side of the map there was this kind of downtown city vibe. Let's take a look at those 3 segments real quick. In the snow section you could wall run along snowy mountain PNGs if you wanted to. There was a bridge in the center of it, and underneath it there was a deep drop where you could fall to your death if you were not careful enough. In the city lane segment, there was this downtown vibe with rain effects even though the skies were clear. Somehow it worked to simulate a gritty urban setting. In the jungle section there were a bunch of trees, who would have guessed, and also some jungle wall textures. I remember how hard it was to see enemies on this side of the map. Paired with something like Spectre's invisibility ability, it was a great place to attack enemies from the shadow. Talking about operators, on the back side of the map you could see showcases of our multiplayer operators. Everyone had their own slot. For example, here you could see Spectre, Outrider and Firebreak. Or on this wall you could see Seraph, Ruin and Reaper. But one showcase was more mysterious. Next to Battery's armor, there was an empty one with only a Joker card. At the time, this was a teaser for the final operator that they introduced, Blackjack, a clever way to build up hype. And besides that, this section also had a climbing wall, gym and shooting range. You could definitely say this was a hidden facility for the operators to train. And outside the map you could see a massive aircraft on standby, ready to deploy the operators on future missions. Finally, we have 3's, a huge construction site. This place was clearly under development and looked like some sort of lab, maybe? As you walked through the area you would see rooms with monitors and the name of the institution, which I believe connects to the BO3 campaign and just adds some extra world building. In the distance you could see more buildings under construction, most likely all part of the same complex. Unfortunately, this map was, content-wise and visually, the least interesting one out of the 4. Not every setting can be as exciting as a water park, I know, but believe me when I say the best was yet to come, and an amazing map was waiting for us in the next DLC pack. The next map pack was called Eclipse and released on April 19, 2016. Next to Setsubo no Shima, the zombies map set on a remote Japanese island, the game now provided 4 new multiplayer experiences. Let's take a look at them. The first one I want to mention is Knockout, a futuristic Japanese temple location with some beautiful scenery. I mean, look at this. I know from experience that when you play the map normally, you always get so focused on the action. But here in theater mode, you have all the time in the world to pause and to take in the beauty of this environment. Inside the main map, you can see some kind of fighting arena and a disco for some reason. No idea how they correlate, but maybe the fighters like to party. On the other side of the map, there's a room with Japanese art displayed in some showcases. On one of the walls you can even spot a neat Easter egg. This suit looks like it belonged to the main character in the Kill Bill movies. When looking at the map from above, you can see that the playable area is simply at the foot of the main temple that can be seen in the distance. And if you even look further away, you can spot another temple with a helicopter vehicle on top of it. I just like this amount of details in this map. It looks pretty neat. With the beautiful coastline and cherry blossom trees, this map really stands out as one of the most beautiful places in the entire game. Next we have Rift, a military rail complex located high over an active caldera. Like honestly, I feel like that's something you wouldn't normally immediately realize during regular gameplay, right? You're too busy fighting and all, but if you zoom out and look at how crazy this location is, you would be shocked. I don't understand why they would place this facility over an active volcano. Like, who made this decision? Anyways, it looks sick. The buildings here are more forgettable, I have to say. They look like your typical futuristic military base with tons of reused assets from other maps in the campaign. But it's quite fun to wall run here, knowing that below you is some hot lava waiting for you. There's also a train traveling across the caldera every minute or so, and in the distance you can see some flying drones. Maybe they're here to check the perimeter or to investigate lava spikes, who knows. But a really cool map nonetheless. Next up, we have Spire. According to the description, a futuristic airport set high above the clouds. And they were not kidding when they said high above the clouds. It's so high up, it really feels like you transcended into the afterlife. The lightning and skybox on this map might be the best out of all maps on this game. It looks so clean. The skyscrapers in the distance also look stunning. Really, if you think about it, those buildings must be at least 1,000 meters tall to be touching the clouds. And in this case, they are probably even higher than that. When looking at the airport, you can see the security check area and the timing of the next flights. Unfortunately, they all seem to be cancelled, probably because our operators are fighting each other in the airport lobby right now. But I think it's cool that the terminal shows El Dorado as a destination. Kinda funny that in this canon Black Ops timeline, this mysterious city of gold actually gets discovered at some point. Hey, maybe it's gonna be a zombies map in Black Ops 7, who knows. Should you get hungry, there's a small restaurant too. It's called Joey's Wraps, although when looking at the food left on the tables, they only served hot dogs and bread. Kinda false advertisement if you ask me. When looking at the outside area of the map, you can see what seems to be a space aircraft shuttle. Unfortunately, you can board it, but it's a nice and important detail nonetheless. You can't have an airport without an aircraft. And finally, we have the map Verge, another remake of a classic Call of Duty map, in this case a remake of Banzai from World at War. But this version has a post-apocalyptic vibe to it. It kinda looks like it could fit in with Mad Max. In the map description, they say it's the battleground of two tribes fighting over control of the last clean water source. And yes, you can see the river separating the two camps. Both sides, however, look extremely similar. Construction site vehicles can be seen all around this place, and it looks like they have been using them for all kinds of stuff. On this side of the map, you can enter a bar that clearly has seen better days, and on top of this building seems to be the relaxing hideout of some scout who likes tomatoes. There's a tomato plant growing next to this chair, and I think that's just so funny to see. You look at all this chaos on the ground, old bottles of liquid and skeletons in chairs, and on top of this building is someone who managed to grow some tomatoes. Kinda a hard opposite. There are also lots of totems and occult-inspired decorations all around the camps and caves. When looking into the distance, you can spot the desert wastelands as well as some high futuristic skyscrapers. Can't have a map without them at this point. Also, there seems to be a pipe going from this big skyscraper towards the lake, right? And together with the map's description of this being the battleground of the last clean water source, it makes me think that the water in the lake might actually have been polluted by this building's company. It would make sense, right? All in all, an unfortunate situation for the bandits of those camps. And with that, we wrap up the second DLC pack and move on to DLC 3, Descent, which released on the 12th of July 2016. The zombies map this time was Gorod Krovi, located in a version of Stalingrad overrun with tons of zombies. There were also flying dragons and enormous set pieces. But we're not here to talk about the zombies maps, are we? We're here to give those multiplayer maps some appreciation. Starting with Berserk, a Viking village somewhere snowy with mountains. The village is high up on a mountain itself, and if you look down towards the coast, you can spot some Viking ships. There are also these enormous statues of Viking warriors on display for everyone sailing into the harbor to see, the ultimate intimidation for any enemies. The village itself is honestly quite tiny. I couldn't see more buildings outside the playable area, so it kind of baffles me that a village this small would have the resources to make statues like that. Anyhow, for all we know, this could have been a bigger village in the past, and the statues are just ruins from a long forgotten time. There are small huts with treasure chests and meat, because of course a small tribe is still living here. And this house right here must belong to the leader of the Vikings. You can see the throne and fancy decorations. But this place is absolutely beautiful. I get the shivers just looking at it, that's how cold it feels. And it's quite a contrast to other Black Ops 3 maps. It's one of the only ones where there isn't a tall building in the background out of bounds. It feels isolated and ancient, not futuristic. Next up is Cryogen, and this place is quite fascinating. When looking around, you will notice that it's actually a security prison, but the prisoners are locked away in cryopods. It really adds more world building to BO3's futuristic setting, where the most dangerous criminals get frozen and locked away. You can even wall run on top of the cryo chambers, which is fun and messed up at the same time. They are literally there as an asset for the map's layout. In one room, you can see some of the inmates in what looks like a virtual reality intervention session, I assume. There's also a room with a bunch of security bots on standby, ready to dissolve riots should they somehow happen. And on top of the prison, there are active weapon systems, ready to shoot down anything and anyone that gets too close to the facility. But here's the fascinating part of this location. When looking outside the map, you can spot some shipwrecks. Meaning this prison facility is stationed at the bottom of a sea. And sure enough, after checking the map's description, it says it's located far off the coast of the Dead Sea. And I think it's absolutely fascinating. The developers really thought outside the box when designing a prison that feels so remote at the extreme like this. A perfect fit for their futuristic vision. Amazing. Next we have Rumble, a robot battleground arena located off the coast of Brazil. Yes, I read that from the map's description again. Seems really like Treyarch has a thing for coastlines, but I don't mind because they make those maps look stunning. I think this map looks bigger than you would expect. There are only a few rooms next to the somewhat small arena with the robots. But here's the neat part. When spawning into the map, you can look at a poster with the following text: "The greatest of all time, the Giant." And behind that text is the silhouette of the Origins robot. An obvious reference to zombies. In multiple ways actually, since the Giant was also the name of the bonus map in BO3. But in this scenario, or timeline I guess, one of the Origins robots became a professional robot fighter. The bottom half of the poster mentions the three contenders, Blitzbro, Red Widow and Buzzsaw, and they are also visible in the arena. Unfortunately, they are not moving and it's hard to say who was winning here or if the match was supposed to happen later. Regardless, none of them would stand a chance against an Origins robot. It would simply stomp them and destroy them. Next we have Empire, the final map in this map pack, and another remake of a classic map, in this case, Raid. And this one feels so different from the original. It's based on a Roman villa recreated by a futuristic billionaire. And it really shows. It looks amazing, from the architecture to the expensive artworks on the walls to the vineyards in the distance. It's one of the most beautiful locations we've seen so far. You can spot some expensive cars around this place and some Latin writing, which translates to "know thyself" or "know yourself." According to some interpretations I found, you could say that this saying emphasizes the importance of self-awareness and introspection, encouraging individuals to understand their own nature, motivations, and limitations. Moreover, this phrase has been attributed to various philosophical traditions, including ancient Greek philosophy, and is often associated with the Delphic maxim inscribed at the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. So it has been a significant concept in philosophy, psychology, and personal development throughout history. And with this deep philosophical digression, we move on to the final DLC content pack. It was called Salvation and brought us the final Zombies map, Revelations. It was a visually gorgeous map with a huge and bright blue Apophicon sun. The rest of the map consisted of sections remastered from earlier maps, but this sun, I tell you, it's such a pleasure to admire it every time I boot up the map. But how were the final 4 multiplayer maps? Well, let's take a look. Starting with Micro, one of the most creative maps ever in Call of Duty. The gimmick with this map was that we were super tiny in comparison to the environment. In this case, the environment was a bunch of food. Taking place on a table in someone's backyard, this was truly a weird experience. Running around those food items, which were extremely large, just looked strange. It must have messed with people's brains when they first played it. There were large sodas, sausages, and various fruits. On the back side there was also a room with soda cans, and on the opposite side was actually an area with ice cooling some fresh beers. It was goofy, it was clever, and it was the most unique map in Black Ops 3 by far. It was most likely the only non-canon map, since it had nothing to do with the established world building in BO3. Regardless, sometimes it's okay to just have fun and mess around, and this map was the ultimate example of that. The map Rupture, on the other hand, was one of the biggest maps in the game. It was also a remake of an old map, Outskirts from World at War. The setting here looked like some sort of military lab hybrid. Some buildings had labs inside, but on the outside there were mech suits you could actually use to fight enemies. According to the map's description, it's a high-tech facility designed to repair Earth's atmosphere, which might explain the gigantic structure in the distance. It's absolutely huge, and the orb in the middle of it looks quite powerful. No other buildings or cities can be seen in the distance, which just shows how isolated and highly secure this place must have been. I hope that whoever worked here found a way to repair the atmosphere, but looking at the mess and the evacuation messages in the living quarters, I'm afraid they had to leave. Next we have Outlaw, another remake of a classic Call of Duty map, this time a reimagined version of Standoff. This old western town also looks beautiful. The lighting on this map really makes you feel like you're still in the old Wild West. There are a bunch of buildings like a bank, saloon and a church, and there's also a train that passes by every now and then. This map also looked like it wasn't really part of this futuristic Black Ops universe. With its classic buildings and environment, it really stood out, in a positive sense. While Black Ops 3's amazing futuristic architecture looks clean and beautiful, it isn't always needed. Just standing here for a while and looking at this simple town, one that had clearly seen better days, gave me a sense of peacefulness. Truly a calming place to visit. If it wasn't for the specialists fighting each other, of course. Finally, we arrived at the very last map. And it's my personal favorite. It's called Citadel, and I kid you not when I say that Treyarch went all out with this one. From the amazing environment, with a futuristic but still medieval setting, to the amount of details in this map and art style. It's such a treat to look at. Looking at what was going on in this map, you could see two factions fighting each other, the attackers and the defenders of the castle. The attackers arrived from the bridge and progressed through the woods, towards the castle. Their emblem looked like a lion, the same lion asset that was used in Zombies mode for the Bubblegum machine. And that icon was associated with Dr. Monty, the all-powerful being in Call of Duty Zombies. But that's not the only zombies reference on this map, because if you make your way to this building on this side of the map, you could spot the Chronorium lying on the table, the ultimate book of power. It really makes you wonder if this map was just a bunch of reused zombie assets or actually canon in some way or timeline. Maybe this actually happened in Zombies, who knows? But who were they even fighting against, you might be wondering? Well, it was the Snake King, or so I would assume, because every piece of art and every logo inside the tower looked like a snake. And the amount of details here were crazy. From small snakes placed above entrances to snake statues to a gigantic snake monument above the throne in a throne room, it was a lot. Not to mention the 3 gigantic snakes gripping the top of the tower. Absolutely amazing. If you ask me, I would have loved to see a full game or story set in this universe. Has this been done before? By the way, does anyone know a futuristic but medieval story with level design as beautiful as this? If you do, please let me know. But with that, we've also reached the end of the video. It's been quite a long one, I know, but each of those maps deserve to be addressed with the right amount of appreciation, since they are no longer getting any from the faded away player base. But as they say, time's arrow neither stands still nor reverses, it merely marches forward. And if you made it all the way through this video, then I must have done something right, for once. Normally I wouldn't bother making long form videos, but in a world that's getting faster and faster every day, I think it's sometimes better to make something meaningful, something with more quality. I know this isn't the traditional zombies content you know me for, but it was something I thought was fun to make. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and a follow, so I can make more videos like this. I might even take a look at other forgotten DLC maps from other games, who knows. So thank you so much for watching, and maybe I will see you next time. Bye.